Hi, this is Shannon Elliott with Teach Asana, and today we're going to talk about Uttanasana, standing forward bend, and some of the common misalignments that happen, especially with a pose that we tend to do over and over and over again. So when we first talk about Uttanasana, we're going to talk about stability through the feet and how we want to set ourselves straight. Okay, so especially with a newer student, always you're going to get more stability by separating the feet and our hip distance. And when we talk about setting the feet to straight, it's the base of the second toe to the center of the ankle. Okay, not the toe tip, because our toes sort of curve. Okay, so base of second toe to center of the ankle is how you define a new student, and any student really, what the definition of a foot straight is. Okay, and then we'll talk just for a brief moment just to show you, then it'll support, okay, the four corners of the feet and how we press down. So once you have the feet straight, it goes in an order. We press through the big toe mound, that's number 1. Inner heel, that's number 2. And then lightly, pinky toe mound, outer edge of the heel. Okay, so big toe mound is sort of the magic button to keep it out of the heels and to keep people from hyperextending. So it goes 1, 2, and then lightly 3, 4. Okay. So once you have feet straight in our hip distance, then we sort of talk about the tendency for the knees. Some people's knees will knock in, some even knock out. Okay, so when you're talking about the knees, okay, knees squared over the ankle. Okay, so ankle, knee, femur. Okay, and then when you have feet straight, 2 ways that we're going to address today. There's 2 different general types of student, right? One that will hyperextend, and so the hyperextending student, I'll just pull these up again so that you can see, right, the back of the knees and what happens as you shift. Okay, so they start, we set them up, we start to hinge at the hips, and then everything shifts back into the heels. They lock out their knee joints, hyperextend, and this is what typically a more flexible student will end up doing. Okay, they come up and they come down and they shift everything back, overstretching the hamstrings, locking out the knee joints. Okay, and then you have someone that's a little bit less flexible that tends to round through the lower back. Okay, so that sort of student ends up looking more like this, and you get this big curve here, or big rounding that happens. Okay. So when we talk about bending forward, okay, and setting straight, it's what's called the greater trochanter, okay, and this is like the knobby bone at the top of the femur. So the other way that we align greater trochanter and the ankle in the same line. Okay, and then I like to have students take their hands right to the top of the femur bone. So top of the femur bone, and sort of work this idea of, as you soften the knees and take top of the thighs back, there's a dimple that will happen here. And when you feel that little dimple happen, that means that your femurs are in the hip sockets, and that's a good place. That's where we want to keep them. Okay, so top of the thighs back, and it's that curve through the low back. You have to have curve first, and then we can lengthen. Okay, top of the thighs back, and then you take, and depending on the student that you're working with, you can have them, reach down and grab the base of the spine. Take the tailbone straight down, just until the low belly engages. Okay, and so often what happens here, we take it back, and then we take it down and pop back forward. Okay, so we want to make sure that you have them take it back, feel out the dimple, okay, and then when the tailbone comes down, the belly tones, it just fills in that dimple a little, and that's where you know you've had enough, and then you press down through the legs. Okay, and then the hinging at the hips, so stability through the legs, hinging at the hips. Now the hyperextender, okay, we want to keep big toe mound, magic button, okay, that's where you're going to shift forward, fold forward, without taking the hips back. Okay, fingertips can come to the floor, fingertips can be up on blocks. Okay, and you just work. How do you lift up? Okay, and this is really hard for a hyperextender. And down without shifting back. So your hyperextender, soften, bend the knees. Okay, so that they're not, anytime you tell a hyperextender to straighten their legs, they're going to lock out. So keep reminding them, soften their knees, soften their knees, soften their knees. I will even say bend your knees, bend your knees, bend your knees, because if you say soften your knees, they think they're softening their knees. And I speak from experience, okay? Bend your knees. They'll end up just softening their knees enough that keeps them safe. Okay? And then your person that has the lower back, right? It's just tighter hamstrings. Everything seems to be tighter, and it's really hard for them to fold forward. Okay? For them, we want to work everything the same. So 4 corners of the feet, feet set to straight, all the same alignment, squaring of the knees, greater trochanter over the ankle, hinging at the hips. And what we really want to get with them is the curving of the back. Okay, so you soften your knees, root the thighs back. Someone that has low back issues, this is going to be a really hard movement for them. Okay, so you may not even want to discuss if they're not able to curve their back, we don't even bring in the tailbone. Okay, so we've got to get curve, 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 and work this action. And a great way to do that, so most people with tighter backs, it's going to be better to be up on blocks so that they can be here, work the rooting in and the curving of the back. Okay, and a really helpful way to do that, hyperextenders or not, okay, is to squeeze the block. When you hyperextend, just to sort of come back to this side for a moment, when you hyperextend, okay, you can't feel the inner thighs. You can't power them. So hyperextender, great way to use the block to go up and down, okay, and feel the inner thighs and keep the softening in the knees and keep the power all the way up the legs. And then for someone that has lower back issues, right, or that rounding that is happening, okay, the softening, the squeezing, almost like a Pez dispenser, right, take the top of the thighs back, root them back and teach them curve. So they're squeezing the thighs, taking the thighs back, curving, okay, as they come up and down. Okay, and then if they have the curve, then they'll start the action of the tailbone. Okay, so curve first, and then you can lengthen the tailbone. Okay, so just to review, okay, we set the feet to straight. For stability, we're going to stay in our hip distance apart. Okay, straight is base of the second toe to the center of the ankle. We want to have 4 corners of the feet, so big toe mound number 1, inner heel number 2, lightly on the pinky toe mound, lightly on the outer edge of the ankle, or the heel, excuse me. Okay, and then knees squared. Okay, so knees squared over the ankle, not knocking in, not knocking out. Okay, usually when the feet are set straight, this will help the squaring. Okay, some people still have that tendency to turn in. Okay, and then as we stand straight, right, no locking out of the knees. So big toe mound is that magic button. Greater trochanter over the ankle. You can take your hands to the top of the femurs, soften the knees, root the top of the thighs back, and you can have the block the whole time. Okay, once you have the dimple, tailbone down to the belly tones. Okay, and then once you have that, press the legs straight by rooting down, not rooting back. Okay, legs straight by rooting down. Okay, and then the hinging at the hips, so as you bow forward, keep that big toe mound down. Keep curving the back as you come down and up without shifting. Okay, and then once you're down, you can have hands on blocks, you can have hands on the floor, and then work, same sort of idea. You can do it from here, right? Soften the knees, hug in, take the top of the thighs back, tailbone down, belly tones, press down through the legs to straighten them. Okay, and then you can bow in from there, as appropriate. So thank you so much for visiting us today. I hope that helps. Please leave any feedback or any sort of comments are highly encouraged. Hope you enjoyed. Namaste.